Let's take out our snow globes. Take out our snow globes. Take out your snow globe. Good. Well done, Mark. Snow globe.
Why am I holding it here? Shouldn't you hold it?
You can hold it that way if you want, but you let's take out your snow globe. Good. You all know where the snow globe is. Good. Excellent. Okay, now you've got the snow globe. Now let's be clear so we all know what we've got. We've got this nice thick glass. This nice thick glass. It's a viscous solution inside. Inside there's a little person, and then there's a couple of little trees, right? Can you see? Look inside your snow globe. Don't look at me. Look at your snow globe. Very nice. There it is. You have a sense of it. And now shake it up. Shake up your snow globe. Shake up your snow globe. Shake it up. Good. You see that Mark is really shaking up. Mark's doing the bartender shake. Okay, you've done that before. Okay, you can shake your snow globe now. Take your snow globe now that it's sort of all that little snow, because there's all that little, little white stuff in there, that little snow. And now put it down gently, because it's got a nice thick base. This is a good snow globe you've got, so you can almost hear it touch down in front of you. Very nice.
Does that have music?
And now that it's down, look at your snow globe. Look at your snow globe. And notice what's beginning to happen with the snow. It's beginning to settle. Still moving around? Do you still have a sense of that viscosity? Right? Okay, there's a lot of it, some of it's settling. Okay. Now, let your snow globe continue to do whatever it's going to do in front of you. So what is this? You ever have it where you're driving in a very snowy area? Goodness knows what people in some parts of the country and world are experiencing now more than ever, but at this time because of the weather conditions. But you ever have it where you've been in Colorado or skiing or somewhere and it's been very snowy? You ever have it where you're driving on the road at that time? Do you ever have it maybe where the snow begins to pick up and or the conditions aren't as comfortable as you would like? It would feel what? It would feel a little bit uncomfortable, unpleasant. And you're trying to see, like, stay on the road, right? Can that be compromised with all that snow coming down, right? And then when that snow is really sort of going down and you're sort of beginning to think about the situation perhaps, or just get caught in cars passing you or somebody honking or whatever, maybe what might you begin to feel as that unpleasantness? Give it more of a form. Nervous? Agitation? Anxiety? Tension? Scared, right? Okay. We don't see so clearly. Right? We're more likely to get confused. So what do I do? So what is this snow globe a metaphor for? What does the snow represent?
Thoughts?
Thoughts.
Thought about the mud.
Huh?
The mud.
The mud. Okay, nice. The mud. And the thoughts. In some cases, you raise an interesting piece, if we got really deep into that. A lot of distraction. And a lot of signal, a lot of noise, and some signal, right? You sort of know in some way, turn to the curb, if you get a skid. Turn into the skid. But you're like, oh my God, and there's all this noise, and you're like, I am afraid to do that. Even though you sort of know to do it. The signal is telling you what to do, the noise is getting in the way. And that mud is a combination of, like, it's all your thoughts, it's your experience. And thoughts are a big part of it. Very nice. Now, when we put it down, and it's hard to see when it's going, it's hard to see clearly, right? It's not as bright in that sense, as a darker, a heavier hue. When we put it down, as you did, it began to what? Settle. Why? In the spirit of the metaphor of the snow being like the mind and thoughts and other sort of interior aspects that can create noise, why did it settle? Yeah.
Like the clouds, your emotions that it passes, like compensating your cortisol levels and your stress hormones will only be there for a few minutes, and the fight or flight will eventually pass. You can see clearly.
Okay, very nice. Have you ever had it where you're in an argument with an opposing counsel or somebody who is on some matter or some interpersonal thing, and you get angry, and you keep staying angry, right? You ever have that? Anybody ever have that? Okay. And yet part of what you're saying is, these things don't last that long, right? And we will get to that as well. But it can really, we can make it last a long time. Okay. So in some ways, when we put this snow globe down and it began to settle, one thing you're saying as well as a rule of law, of life, things eventually move on. Okay. So that's almost like gravity. It's just like it's the nature of the beast. Okay. That would be especially useful and relevant if we're talking about the snow globe itself as a physical object. It certainly has a metaphorical aspect to the symbolism we're bringing to it. Why else might, so nicely done, why else might this settle? Hello there.
Maybe because of like the stillness and like the steadfastness and just like weathering the storm is like in the as the snow goes.
So that's interesting.
Like staying grounded until like the storm passes.
Okay, so you put this snow globe down, you just have a lot of things, the stillness and steadiness, and then what is it that, if you would apply it to what we did, because what we did was this, we shook it, we put it down, and then it began to settle. So could you speak to what you just said, but speak to it in the context of, like, what were we actually doing in that moment to have it settle?
First we were facilitating the storm and the thoughts and so on, and then we kind of grounded ourselves in like a tree or so, and we kind of like planted ourselves and we let it calm and we let it...
You think you let it calm.
Oh.
It's interrupting, right? You said you let it calm. Like, oh, I get agitated. Well, what do you do about that? I just let it calm. Oh, okay, that's helpful to me. What do we do to let it calm?
placing it.
There is, yes.
Focusing on, like...
Focusing on, say more. That's right. You're speaking to everything right. You're speaking to sort of grounding ourselves. You can think of that as the doing, right? Doing something to sort of steady ourselves, calm ourselves down a little bit. So that we can then do something that's fundamental to its settling, which is focusing on, which is, what's a broader word for focusing? That's right. What's a broader word for focusing? What are we doing? Look at your snow globe. It's probably settled a little bit more. Always settling. It's never going to be, what's another word for the focusing? It's a little broader.
Waiting.
Waiting. So there's a waiting.
Patience.
There's patience. Do you have the patience to wait?
Well, when you said look at the figures and all that, you're concentrating not on the snowflakes, but on what's actually inside and looking past the snowflakes.
Okay, that's interesting. You're sort of you're getting a little bit, very nicely sort of granular in terms of where you're directing. Don't be surprised if one day you come in and I give you all a little flashlights, directing your attention. You're talking about really sort of broadening in some ways, or not getting caught up in. So yes, so patiently waiting and not necessarily, I'm hearing you sort of say getting caught up in everything, but by what mechanism? And you've already sort of said it. So when I say the word that I'm thinking of, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I said that, I said that, I said that, I said that. We are doing what to it? And we are
Paying attention.
paying attention. We're observing. We're observing our snow globe. Are we observing it to make it slow down? Can you say, what happens if you want your snow globe? Like Charity Scott, I spoke at Charity Scott's school. She invited me about 3 or 4 years ago, which was very nice of her. It was a wonderful experience. She's an amazing person. And a couple of weeks later, I got this in the mail.
Huh.
Because I shared the snow globe sort of with her students and her faculty. So here, isn't it a great globe? I know. It's nestled in my favorite sweater, and it's in here. And one day it'll break, and I'll be like, but for now, it's pretty, right?
That's so cool. I've never seen one.
I want to suggest to you that even when your mind is all over the place, see, if we were inside here trying to get somewhere, it would be like it could be a very unpleasant experience. But if we're here, it's almost like it's beautiful. I mean, this is your life. You're living your life with the people, the friends, the people you're not so sure are friends, family, loving relationships, not so loving relationships, a lot of work, a lot of excitement about where you're going and the opportunities that your life offers and the challenges and the struggles, and it's sort of, even in its most tumultuous, to observe is very different than being caught in it. We're sitting and we're practicing through the mindfulness practices, observing. And you nicely speak to the different things that we can pay attention to and the different ways we can pay attention. Open monitoring would be like, just observe. Focused attention would be narrowing in on something to help us observe, perhaps. So it's settling here because of the stillness, the steadiness, the patience. Because if I'm like, why isn't it happening? Right? Think about this. Why isn't it happening? What's wrong? I don't understand. What are we doing through that resisting the fact that it's not settling fast enough?
Making more snow.
We're only agitating it. Might we do that? Do you have the patience to wait for the mud to settle? So here's the thing. You don't have to go out tomorrow and be in class or be with a friend or be in this situation or that and say, I need the patience to wait for my mud to settle. You have daily practices that invite you to do that without having to make an extra special effort. Part of what we're doing is we're sitting, we're paying attention in a particular way so that we can notice. Because as the noise subsides, the signal, and if there was a little person in here and a tree and you begin to see more clearly, even the activity of the mind, even the thoughts that can be, to your very important point, very important to reflect on and attend to. Now the little snow person in your snow globe, the little snow person in your snow globe, the little snow person in your snow globe. Who is the snow person in your snow globe, Ben?
I don't know.
Who do you think it is?
I guess it's me.
It's you. And I love that answer. I love that answer because if we look at what Charity said, in the beginning, which I thought was, I haven't seen this, I don't think I've seen this before, so I love this. When I read her paper, she said, well, at some point, here it is, she said, despite widespread use of the Socratic method in law school classrooms to promote learning to think like a lawyer, and there's a lot of value in that if it's done and harnessed in a way that's useful, I think. Does anybody remember what she says after that?
They don't teach you how to focus on yourself.
Legal education and the legal profession too often de-emphasize the Socratic principle to know thyself. So I love your answer. Who is in there? I don't know. Because that's sort of right. Remember that song from last week? There was that chorus in there. Who am I? I can't remember how much. Remember how much phrase in the Supertramp song? It's knowing who we are. So yeah, I guess it's me. You're right. But who am I? This is sort of what we're exploring. So yeah, we all have our snow globe. And I want to suggest you had it since the moment you were born. You're going to have it till the moment you sort of take off from this world. And if you're not aware, you ever have where somebody's just so angry and upset that they're just out of control? It's like, now you're like, snow globe. Snow globe. That's what's going on. They're in there. There's some good stuff going on there. Snow globe, right? Now it's hard, we'll get, and when we get to mindfulness and relationships and interpersonal communication, we'll get to the other person's snow globe. It's, by the way, useful to know that everyone else has one too. The judge, the jury, your friend, your parent, everyone else has theirs. And everyone's snow globe has their moments. We all have our snow globe moments. Usually from whatever's happening is not what we want. Like there you were sitting here, Bob, and your snow globe was sort of in a nice place, and then all of a sudden there's this sound, and if we had been watching, like, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something, okay? You think you'd have been like, as influenced by that as you're riveted by Game of Thrones? Right. So I was sort of at a place in my rivetingness, right? So I was like, it's a little hard to figure this out. Yeah, it is. So, remember when you were in your first semester of law school and you were in class and you got called on? Do you remember that call on moment? Right?
Yes.
Now think about this. You're sitting in class and now you know, you may not have realized it before, you had a snow globe in front of you, right? Just following you around wherever you go. You got this little snow globe. What was it like when you got called on? Like, what was it like as you were about to get called on or thought you might get called on? How did that feel in a word or two?
Hot.
Hot.
Flustered.
Flustered, right? We all have a sense of this feeling. It's almost like just by bringing our mind to it, we can remember it. Now, it might have been that it turned out to be the greatest experience of your life. Maybe not. Yeah.
I was so scared when he called my name that I pretended that I didn't hear that he called me. And then he awkwardly looked at me, and I looked at him, and then he just turned around and called me.
See, and we can, right, and so we could look at that and say, okay, saved by the Drew, or missed opportunity, right? Or missed opportunity. It's an interesting thing. Now, of course, you had that opportunity at some other time. So first of all, very clever strategy. It doesn't usually work in court, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. See, what happened is this. And I'm not speaking for, your snow globe is sort of like in a hovering state. Then he says your name. What happens to your snow globe?
It started shaking rapidly.
Right. Did he come over and shake? Did he go, did he do this? No, he didn't do it. Did you reach for your snow globe and shake your own snow globe? Not necessarily. It's just sort of happening. Right? Something's happening here, which is in some way resisting. Right? Resisting. Even when you really want to crave something, your snow globe can go too. Don't be confused that it's always an unpleasant situation. You ever like, I gotta get that thing, I gotta get that thing, I gotta get the thing. You're so excited to get that thing, and you waste so much time to get that thing, and then a week later you're like, what's the big deal about that thing? So it cuts in all directions, this not being present and seeing clearly. And then when you probably looked at you, and then you like, that was such a funny thing. Then maybe his snow globe went to him. He's like, I don't know what's going on here.
He thought he said my name wrong.
Right.
Because I didn't respond.
Right. See, he's a little snow. Right. So rather than go through the experience of trying to get it right, or he maybe sensed your snow globe and thought, who knows?
Thankfully.
Yeah. Okay. But the thing is no one's actually shaking your snow globe. That thing, even though you felt a rope attached to it, was not yanking your snow globe. We were resisting something taking place. It was uncomfortable, and the snow takes off. And this mindfulness practice says, okay, let me learn to do this a little bit more often. Especially in those moments that are really challenging. But can you imagine how hard it is to do that in those moments that are really challenging? It's especially hard to do it in those moments that are really challenging. So we're creating a time and a space each day where you get to choose where and when, and even to some extent how long. And I want to suggest to you, if I say for as many minutes as you want, between 5 and 10, and you pick 5, you might be shortchanging yourself. Or maybe it's really good because you have to be somewhere in 7 minutes and you're going to get your 5 minutes in. So that in those moments, there may even be less activity of the snow globe when somebody does something that you're resisting, let alone how quickly you can shift to an observational stance and have it settle. Because in many ways, it defies the laws of gravity, this settling. Because it's happening here. Okay.